In this video, you will learn about call of stock scheme by Amazon, which might be useful for Amazon sellers who would like to test their products in European marketplaces without signing up for additional VAT registrations. My guest today will be Alex from SimplyVAT. You will find below the link to their services. They help Amazon sellers with different taxes, tax compliance in European Union, Canada, and few more countries. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Hello, Alex. It's nice to have you here back on our channel. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us how do you help Amazon sellers?
Yeah, sure. Thanks always for having me back on your channel. It's great to be here. So my name is Alex Wyatt. I work at simplyvat.com. And SimplyVat is essentially an international tax service provider. We help businesses selling on marketplaces or their own website get VAT registered and compliant by filing their ongoing tax filings on a monthly or quarterly basis for sellers to help them remain compliant when trading internationally.
And now we will talk about some interesting scheme which helps Amazon sellers to test their products in European marketplace without too many additional VAT registrations. Everything is legal according to tax rules in European Union. And it's called Amazon Call of Stock, right?
Yes, correct. So Amazon's Call of Stock has been around for a few years now, but under Amazon, it's really just been introduced. So I want to make sure that sellers know about the program and can utilize it as they start expanding across the European Union market and hopefully testing their products in different member states. We're going to start with Amazon's Call of Stock scheme. And this scheme was actually brought into place under their beta scheme in June 2022. So what it essentially does is it allows sellers to store inventory in a specific country and then essentially gives the customers or the sellers faster delivery and local fulfillment fees under a single registration. So this relies on an EU VAT simplification called the call off stock simplification. And it is actually, like I mentioned, a huge benefit to merchants because you only need one VAT registration instead of having multiple. So we're going to go into the call off stock simplification. So what it is as a whole. So it's part of the quick fixes of 2020 of the EU VAT directive. And so from January 2020, it was a uniform treatment that applies to all cross-border call of stock arrangements in the EU. So it's going to be consistently applied across the EU. And essentially what it is suppliers that are using the call of stock arrangements can avoid multiple VAT registrations and VAT reporting in the member states of arrival, and so that they can keep compliant records still and make sales without having more VAT obligations, which I know many people always say, how do I stop worrying about taxes? This is going to be one of the schemes that might be able to help you. So looking at the call of stock requirements a little bit further. So a supplier must know the identity of the intended acquirer of the goods. On Amazon, we know the person that's buying the goods from you is actually Amazon. So it's slightly different from Amazon Vendor Central, where Vendor Central, Amazon is making a purchase of a lot of goods on your behalf, kind of like a wholesale, and then selling it on your behalf. The call of stock is actually happening at the point of sale. So Amazon is taking the goods once the goods are sold to a customer. So supplier and the acquirer, Amazon, must both have valid VAT IDs. So in this case, you need to have a VAT number in one member state where you're holding the stock or where the stock comes from. The goods must be called off or returned to an original country of departure within 12 months. So so to go under the call of stock, it needs to either be sold within 12 months or it needs to go back to the country where the goods came from. And I'll explain this a little bit further in a few more slides. The supplier cannot have a fixed establishment in the country of this call-off stock. So the supplier, being the seller, they cannot have a fixed establishment in the country where the goods are being called off in. And again, I'll explain this a little bit further when we go into the Amazon rules. So what does this mean for Amazon sellers? So Amazon purchases the seller's inventory and resells the goods to the customer at the point of sale. So it's a B2B2C transaction. When the seller uses the call off stock arrangement, they remain the owners of the goods whilst the inventory is moved between the countries under the Amazon's fulfillment network until the goods are sold to the end consumer, at which point, again, that sale is made to Amazon and then Amazon to the customer. When the goods enter a country enabled for call off stock, the goods will appear as shipped and sold by Amazon. So this will come up within your Seller Central reports. It will say shipped and sold by Amazon. That's how you know it was under the call off stock scheme. And as I mentioned, you do not need to get a VAT registration in the country of arrival or the delivery country. And again, I'll explain this in just a little bit more detail. So again, going into what this means for Amazon sellers. So when an end consumer purchases the goods from Amazon, the item from the seller, Amazon purchased the item from the seller, and then they resell the item to the consumer. So the seller is actually making a B2B transaction. Amazon is making the B2C transaction. So from the seller's point of view, in terms of the VAT reporting, it's seen as a B2B transaction. So you're actually taking Amazon's VAT ID and making sure that that is reported as exempt of taxes. An EC sales list must be submitted by the sellers in the member state from which the items are dispatched. So this is the country where you are VAT registered. You're going to have to file an EC sales list. And the EC sales lists are there typically to report a few different things. One, it's any cross-border B2B transactions, or two, it's any stock movements within the EU. So on your EC sales list, you're actually going to be recording, first of all, your stock movement over into the other EU member state where the goods are getting closer to the consumers. And then once the product is sold, you're also going to be recording on your EC sales list the transaction to Amazon. If the goods are not sold within that 12-month period and they need to come back to the original member state, then you will also need to record that on your EC sales list as well. In certain member states, if you go above a specific threshold, you may need an Intrastat declaration as well. But these are typically if you're recording higher volumes of goods of sales. Sellers must be enrolled onto Amazon's VAT calculation service so that Amazon can calculate the taxes at the point or and raise invoices as well. And then selling to you, just as a reminder, you're selling to Amazon and not to the end consumer. So looking at Amazon's call-off scheme at the moment. So right now it is only limited to sellers with a German VAT registration number. More countries will be added over the next few months as this beta scheme kind of continues to expand. But what essentially you are doing is you have to have a German VAT registration and you're calling off the stock in France at the moment. These are the only two countries under the call off stock scheme. And so what will happen is you have your VAT registration in Germany, you will move your stock into a French fulfillment center until a French buyer and consumer purchases the goods from you. Once that happens, Amazon will then make the sale to the customer, and you will declare the sale as a B2B transaction between you and Amazon as a cross-border transaction. But in the interim, you did not need a French VAT registration. So currently, if you are moving your goods into multiple EU member states, you do need a VAT registration in each member state. But the difference with the call-off stock arrangements is actually you are moving the goods over to be called off to an end consumer by Amazon. So Amazon is essentially making moving all the goods over for you, and then going to be seen as the supplier of the goods once they are sold. If they're not sold, they're moved back over to Germany, and they are just treated as kind of like a return in that case from Amazon. Overall, it's really just a B2B transaction between you and Amazon, cross-border, and if the sale doesn't go through, it comes back to you after that 12 months, and if it does go through, then it's just seen as a B2B transaction between you and Amazon, and a B2C transaction between Amazon and the end consumer. In Germany, there is an additional form to file in Germany for the call-off stock scheme when making sales under call-off stock. So traditionally, in most EU member states, you would file the EC sales list, and all of the call-off stock information would be on that EC sales list. In Germany, there is one extra form to file when a call-off stock sale is made, and you would do this alongside your VAT return or whenever a call-off stock sale happens.
By the way, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe this video. To me, it's still a little bit confusing. Whenever I see on Amazon, it says sold and shipped by Amazon, I'm imagining it's a vendor's account which is selling their products to Amazon. But I think in your presentation, you mentioned that it's applied not only to vendors, right?
Yeah. So I'll just go through again the difference between the vendor central and the call-off stock scheme, just in a little bit more detail. So vendor central, you're essentially, Amazon is purchasing maybe all of your products or a portion of your products on your behalf, and then they are then selling the products on your behalf. They've purchased inventory from you, and then they're going on and selling it themselves. That is vendor central. Okay, so there's a big B2B kind of wholesale transaction that happens, and then Amazon sells it, and it's all of their goods. They own it. With the call-off stock, it's essentially one product at a time being sold to Amazon, but when the product is sold to the customer. So it essentially removes the risk from Amazon from buying a whole bunch of inventory and then having to sell it all to make sure that they cover their costs. What they're doing is essentially purchasing a product as and when it's sold to a consumer. So, I guess the big benefit to the call-off stock is instead of it coming from Germany to a customer in France, it would actually be going from a fulfillment center in France to a customer in France. So the benefit is really faster delivery and cheaper fulfillment fees for sellers. So those are the kind of two differences.
And for this scheme, you have to click somewhere checkbox in Seller Central.
Yeah, there's a specific enrollment within Seller Central to sign up to the call-off stock scheme. And again, you must have a German VAT registration, and you must not have a French VAT registration. So if maybe you're expanding into Europe at the moment and you have a German VAT registration, because we all know Germany is the largest market within Europe, and then you're looking to expand your products into France for kind of a lower cost, this might be a really good scheme for you to join, because you don't require that additional VAT registration in France. And all it means is that you set up your own listings, and then Amazon will move your goods over into France under this call-off stock scheme. And there's essentially no risk, because if your goods don't sell within that 12 months, the goods come back to you in Germany. So there's no real kind of risk in this. It just means that you can kind of test a market for cheaper fees without actually having to invest so much in that new market.
And you mentioned 12 months period. Is it Amazon's rule, right? Or it is something by this tax
It's
rule?
a tax rule. So this is a specific tax rule for the call-off stock scheme. And so it's an EU-wide tax rule. So Amazon, if your goods have been moved over into, say, France for 12 months and they have not sold, they must go back over into Germany.
They must. And what happens if I forget to move them? Let's say or Amazon forgot to move them back, and it's standing for 13 months?
That's a good question. I it depends on how much the tax authorities will actually look into them. Now, you may have then a requirement to VAT register, because you would then be holding your stock in that country for onward sale. These products would no longer qualify for the call-off stock scheme. So then, yeah, it wouldn't be covered under this specific arrangement anymore, the simplification, and a VAT registration would be required at that point. So you'd need to make sure that they do move back over. And I'm sure Amazon would help facilitate this, because they also don't want to become the owner of the goods as they're over there within the member state as well. So they would be helping move over these goods with you.
And what about the countries like Spain and Italy? So this cannot be applied, this
So
scheme?
at the moment on Amazon, this scheme is not going to be applied. So as I mentioned, it's just a beta scheme at the moment. They're just trialing it out between Germany and France. But as more people join it and the more successful it is, they will start to roll it out to other member states to make their lives easier, your lives easier. You don't need as many VAT registrations in each member state, where you're holding your inventory under this case. So it does make it easier for sellers and Amazon alike. So they will start to expand it. It's just a matter of when. So if you wanted to trial it out now, it's just available between Germany and France, and you must not have a VAT registration in France. You must have one in Germany.
All right, so now I'm more clear what is COS, and I can imagine SimplyVAT can help Amazon sellers with that, right?
Yes, correct. So if you want to learn more about the call-off stock scheme, or you need to get VAT registered in Germany in order to use the call-off stock, then yeah, feel free to reach me on my email at alex@simplyvat.com and mention OrangeClick. You'll get a special discount when you mention Augustus, and we will be able to help you sell from there.
Thank you very much. You'll find the link below to SimplyVAT as well. And good luck in your business. Bye-bye, Alex. I hope this video was useful. And if you need help with being tax compliant in European marketplaces, in Canada, in a few more countries, you will find the link below in the description to SimplyVAT website. Contact them, mention OrangeClick, mention this video, and get a small discount for their services. And now I would like to invite you to watch other video with Alex, where she talks about European taxes and what you need to do to know if you want to sell your Amazon products in Europe.